So the War for Cybertron trilogy has come and gone, and it was a mixed bag for me. It started off alright. I didn't have much of an interest in Siege when it launched. Almost all of my Siege toys were bought just because a local toy store was closing down and all the deluxes were like $5. Earthrise was riddled with QC issues and COVID problems that just made the whole line not super enjoyable for me. Kingdom was a different case. It started pretty bland, like you've all seen my Optimus Primal video, but after messing with a bunch of the releases, I noticed I was enjoying it more. Kingdom saved the War for Cybertron line for me, and I really did enjoy the variety of it, both Beast Wars and G1. Now it's over, and the new Generations line has come in to take its place. Legacy feels like a return to form with Generations, figures that are stylized versions of their former selves, sort of. Well, specifically 3 of them, because the rest are still G1 takes of their former selves, but we're halfway there. This is the first wave of Legacy, both the Voyagers and Deluxes. I don't have the leaders because they aren't out here yet, and I'm not buying Galvatron. And I just didn't buy the cores because I didn't buy the cores, so they're not here. But this video will basically consist of what I think of the first wave of Deluxes and Voyagers and my thoughts and expectations of where this line seems to be going. So just to start off, Blaster here is the Kingdom one, but there's no difference between this and the Legacy one, so he's here in the video. I'm going to start with the Deluxes, going from my least favorite to my favorite, same with the Voyagers, so Kickback then. Kickback is very G1, like it's extremely Generation 1, and that's both good and bad to me. It's very G1 accurate to the toy, which I think is something that's really cool, and it does look really great. What makes me like it so much is how incredibly clean it is. The last Kickback was covered in like bug legs or whatever, whereas this one is sleek and solid looking, all the proportions fit very well. He looks great in robot mode, but here's where my issue comes in. That's all he does. He can hold his weapons, but like, that's it. Nothing fancy or neat, just very, like, here he is, okay, moving on. Like, he doesn't do anything super noteworthy other than look good, but if that's what you're looking for, then he works quite well. There is this hinge in the torso, but this section is glued in place. This is not uncommon for, like, companies to do to their products last minute. It looks like there may be springs in there, and this looks both broken and glued. My theory is that this was a gimmick they had planned, but during the initial QC and test phase, the gimmick broke a lot, and they didn't have time to go back and change it in the design or the assembly because the molds had already been created. So for the rest of the batches, they just have someone glue them shut during manufacturing. Bit of a bummer, but I'd rather the toy not explode itself to bits, so I'm completely content with whatever this was supposed to be not working. Posing on this dude is very smooth, nothing feels loose, everything is super solid and robust, yet easy to move around. You can also use the transformation joints in the arms to get him a double jointed elbow. His range and tolerances really surprised me out of the box. I'm pretty happy with how this whole thing turned out. Not gonna lie, I was expecting this dude to have like terrible QC for some reason, but he just didn't. It was great. Transformation is so bland. It's just lying him down and folding out some legs. That's it. It's very G1 toy based, which is nice, but like it's not interesting. It's just lie him on his back, done. Bug mode is pretty neat, but it doesn't do anything special. However, this was something interesting that someone pointed out to me on Twitter. The swords are designed to peg together and slot into the back of Kickback, making the thorax, which is pretty epic actually. It's a really cool way of integrating these weapons into the bug mode other than just plugging them onto the wings. He actually has a thorax now. It makes the bug mode a lot more interesting to me. And it's a big bug, like it's pretty sizable next to some other figures. It really does look like bro's just laying down though. Like I just wish it did something a bit more unique, but for the G1 purists, this works quite well. But that's all I can really say about Kickback. He looks great, poses great, transformation is extremely bland, and bug mode is extremely boring to me. 6 out of 10 I'd give it. If they started with, say, one of the deluxe Insecticons like Chop Chop or Barrage, I would have loved that a lot more. Arcee is a special figure. So I was really looking forward to this, being a huge Prime fan and all, but when I got it in hand at first, I was very disappointed. The torso wouldn't tab in, and I wasn't the only person with that issue, and the kibble kept falling off a lot, but like, after I messed with it more and more, I figured out how to get the torso to stay. The kibble actually doesn't fall off anymore. It's actually not that bad. I honestly really like the look. The backpack is a bit much, but it's not a detriment to the toy, so it doesn't really bother me too much. She's pretty stable and solid. All the joints are really nice and smooth. She's also really nimble, so posing her is a delight. The colors on this are what I like the most. The bright blue and the deep blacks work really well here. The metallic purple is a nice way to break up that blue with the silver. The weapons are also neat. You got Energon blades calling back to her prime blades from the show, but they also combine into like this Mandalorian looking shield thing. And her back kibble comes off to become this faux disc launcher, Fall of Cybertron gear shredder looking thing. It's alright, I just don't really care for it much, so it just stays on the back. She does look very good though, and that's what draws me to mess with it a lot. I wish the wheels on the legs could fold back into the legs like the original design, but I mean, it looks alright here. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not ideal. Posing is great. It's pretty standard, but because of her shaping, it makes the poses you get her into feel more elegant and dynamic. And the kibble isn't much of a downer either. She's pretty solid in most poses. Sometimes she can still be a little back heavy, but it's not too bad. The torso joint is pretty fiddly though on mine. It likes to come untabbed a lot. And because of how tight it is, if I go to rotate the waist, it pops right out, so that's a little annoying. Transformation is where things become a little wishy-washy for me. It gets in its own way a lot, especially when swinging the legs around, and it can be real annoying. Getting the side sections tabbed in too can also be a hassle, but it just makes the whole thing just kind of a pain. Bike mode is actually pretty awesome. The use of limbs is pretty satisfying once you get everything swung around, and while it's on the thick side for a motorcycle, it's like width-wise, it still looks really, really cool. The colors look really clean here. I love the little bits of orange on the front and the dual headlights. I'm a huge fan of those. I like how they actually went asymmetric as well with the exhaust pipes on the back. I've seen some Transformers where they have 2 exhaust pipes on it. I like the one, that look. And I like how all of the transformation hinges in the middle of the bike are just hidden away very easily by 2 panels. It cleans up pretty well for something boxy that turns into a bike. The weapons also store on the back and look kind of dinky. I call these butt blades. This deluxe to me is pretty fun, but that transformation and those initial learning curves kind of hold it back for me. 7 out of 10 for this one. It's pretty good for the most part, but it still has its issues. Skids is fun. If you mess with the MP, then this is a very simplified version of it, and I like it here. I love how boxy and squared off everything is. He feels very G1, but I don't mind that in this sense because I just like G1 Skids' design. The box on the head, though, does look a bit ugly. I kind of wish maybe they'd put the panel on the windshield, but that also would have looked pretty ugly. It also would have added an extra hinge to some clear plastic, so I'm fine with it. The biggest robot mode issue I have, though, is the guns. They are so stiff when pegging them in that I got the double barrel gun stuck in his arm the first time I got this, and I have heard some people just shear the peg right off, so you might want to sand that down. I'm also not the biggest fan of the dark blue. A lot of the detail gets lost in the sea of blue. I really do wish they went with a lighter blue like the Masterpiece, but I bet they didn't because they didn't want it to clash with Arcee in the sense of having 2 light blue toys in the same toy line. The hollow bits are there, and they are big, but they don't bug me much. However, I don't doubt that there will be some third-party companies to make gap fillers soon, or you can just 3D print them yourself, but I can see them bothering a lot of people. They are prominent, kind of like Impactor, so... He also has an axe. Alright then, Skids' famous weapon, the axe. Oh, and the guns are blast effect compatible. Him and Kickback are, but the rest don't seem to be, which is weird. The robot mode is quite pleasant, and as a fan of Skids' design, I'm happy with getting a new figure. I think this looks really awesome. I don't know why, but for me, it also feels like it fits very well with Jackpot. Like, I love the way that this duo looks. I'm going to display them together. That's just, I don't know, it's just funny. Posing is pretty standard, but it feels a tad clunky because of how clunky the design is. But he does have wrist swivels, which is a one-up on a lot of the other Legacy toys we have seen, so, you know, good for Skids. And also, due to the transformation, he has a backwards ab crunch. That's a nice bonus, but sometimes it can just come untabbed randomly, at least on my copy, which can be a bit annoying. Transformation is just really similar to the Masterpiece one, but more simple. He does have one big issue, and that's these really small tabs. The really thin clear plastic tabs on the windshield. They're really stiff to like tab in and scary to untab. I don't know how long that's gonna last, but it's a thing. The little stylized Honda City though is awesome. I love the Honda City, and I think this alt mode just looks epic. The roof doesn't tab in on my copy and a couple others from what I've seen, and that's really annoying. But that's probably just like a case of you need to sand down something. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to. It should just peg in properly. I love the red stripe on the side and the paint on the front. I just wish the back had some paint. He does have a sunroof, which I love. My only issue with the paintwork is the blue matching. The plastic blue is darker than the clear plastic painted blue, and it's a bit annoying to me because it's pretty noticeable in person. Next to the Masterpiece, it's really interesting to like compare these two because they're both very similarly sized, and honestly they look pretty good next to each other. Of course, the Masterpiece one has more detail, more paint, but it still looks pretty cool next to it. I just wish the Legacy one had the lighter blue. The weapons can store, and they look fugly. But that's Transformers weapon storage. What do you expect? Overall, this deluxe is a solid 7.5 out of 10, and this probably is the best deluxe in the line if it weren't for... Dragstrip isn't this yellow in real life, by the way. It's a little darker. I'll try to color correct it as best I can, but my camera sucks with yellows. Dragstrip is fucking incredible. He looks incredible. He feels incredible. His posing is incredible. And my only issue is the lack of heels. Otherwise, I have zero complaints. This is a fantastic mold, and it's so fun to look at, to mess with, to take pictures of. It's just a blast to play with. It's a slightly stylized design to G1, which is great. I love the new shoulder pauldrons and the way the arms are done, and the proportions are on point for me. The guns are really nice too, but they aren't intentionally blast effect compatible, which is a shame. I love the tooling on this guy though, specifically. It really helps the toy pop in this big sea of yellow. Speaking of which, I can now do this.
Cheese.
He can also do the I want to jazz thing, which is hilarious. And no, the manual does not show anything about the combine mode in it. I bet that's all going to be included with Motormaster, and I feel like Motormaster will be the last component we get. Articulation is basic, but like Arcee, the way the sculpt is makes it feel more dynamic than it actually is. The wheels on the shoulders don't get in the way of posing, which was a concern of mine when just seeing the pictures of it. It's just that lack of heel. I wish there was a little bit left folded out from the spoiler to make the heels, because he just likes to fall over quite a bit. But it is such a joy to mess with. All the joints feel super sturdy and stable. It's really nice. Transformation is super smooth and fluid. It's really fun. It's so self-explanatory, yet really fun at the same time. He has Combiner Wars leg joints, which I find funny because his most recent toy that I can think of was Combiner Wars. Alt mode is stellar. The colors are really nice here, and the head becomes a seat. It's really neat the way they hide the head away, so I like that a lot. He rolls very well too. I love the Decepticon logo on the front, just presenting who he is right in your face as he crashes into you probably. And the Silverell engine helps break up that sea of yellow. Oh, also, again,
cheese.
And yeah, he still splits in two here, and that's how he's going to combine. But I'm not going to come to any conclusions until I actually see some more about the combine mode, because I don't want to, set an expectation in my head that's unreachable with this design. But I love Dragstrip. He's super fun and super satisfying to mess with. Legit 9 out of 10. He just needs heels, and he'd be a perfect 10. Now we're on to the Voyagers, and Blaster was pushed forward into Kingdom for to put another Voyager in this line, but I don't think he was ready, so they put him back in Legacy. I don't know. I don't understand. Hasbro could deal with that. We got Blaster, but both the Kingdom and Legacy versions are the same toy. Blaster's G1, but still looks neat. I got one as soon as they were available because I didn't want a repeat of Netflix Soundwave, but it's now available everywhere, so that's good. You're definitely not going to miss out on one of these if you want one now. The legs for me just look too chunky, and I think it has to do with the handles on the side making it look that way. It just throws me off. The rest of the toy is pretty clean though, and the coloring is quite nice. His yellow is actually a yellow plastic piece with a clear insert. See, that's how you do clear plastic. I love the transformation joint on the arms to give that ability to press the button on his stomach. It's a really cool thing. However, that finger looks way too long for me. He also comes with a clear eject, which, even though it's clear, looks neat. But the clear presents an issue I've noticed. Even with Legacy's new, stronger approach to clear plastic, this wasn't a good idea. I rarely transform my eject because he's already stressing at the joints, which is quite unfortunate. It has to do with how tight the ball joints are, and they're just spreading that clear material. But he fits very well in the chest, other than Soundwave's tapes, who get stuck in Soundwave all the time. It actually fits so perfectly. It's super satisfying. I do wish they went for a more comic accurate head than the G1 cartoon. I don't know. The comic head's grown on me over the past couple years. It's more interesting to me. But as a whole, I do really like Blaster. It's fun, and I'm glad we got a new one, because even though I really want the Titans Return one, it's not the best looking thing in the world. His gun is cool, and you also get a bunch of storage ports on the back to store it in, so that's nice. His posing is very standard too, and a bit clunky because of how clunky the design is in general, but I like those extra joints in the arms like I said. They make getting him into button pressing poses a lot easier. I will say his ankle tilts are a bit ugly when you use them because you can expose all the transformation hinges in his feet. And there's like this weird cutoff. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just something worth noting. The transformation is a slight spin on the classic blaster conversion because you tuck the arms and so you flip the arms around, then tuck them in to the legs. It's really neat how all that hides away. And all the panels and chunks move very smoothly and unfolding all the panels to fit around him to enclose him into a rectangle, make for a very general and satisfying transformation. This mode is my favorite. It's a little wee boombox, and yes, it can poof. Here you go. Are you happy now? No, he cannot play the only tape we have in the house, which for some reason is Tom Jones' Greatest Hits, but the box mode is actually pretty sick. There's a small part of me that wishes the dials could turn on the front, but at this price point, I don't mind them not. The front is very filled out and clean and squared off, but the back feels very empty, and it does bother me a bit, because the front succeeds at being a box so well, but the back just isn't much of a box. It's more of a collection of limbs. If only like there were two panels that folded out from the back to fill in those, it would have been a little nicer, but at the end of the day, you're not looking at the back of this that often anyways. But I do really like Blaster. He's great next to any War for Cybertron figure really, but he fits really well with Soundwave. I'd give this guy an 8 out of 10. Now, probably the point of most debate in this line, and the figure I was the most excited to get, Bulkhead. This is a G1 Bulkhead, but he didn't show up in G1, and everyone knows this design from Animated and Prime, and Energon if you want to go there. But this is Prime Universe what? So, I think the biggest point of discussion with this guy is the fact that it's supposed to be Prime Bulkhead, but he looks like this. I was trying to get RID Prime Bulkhead in for like time to make this video, but Bai hasn't received it yet, so you'll have to content with the Beast Hunters one for now. There's no story to Legacy right now, and I feel like that would have helped sell this design a lot to people who are skeptical about it, because it's supposed to be like a multiverse thing and multiverse design. In my mind, it's like if they were to go, yo, when characters come through the portal, all Spider-Man No Way Home, like the transport changes them to fit the universe that they're coming into. That's a bit of a stretch for me to justify what they really intended on, which was just to have a Bulkhead that fits in your War for Cybertron collection. But I'm okay with that. I wasn't a fan of this design when I first saw photos of it the day before, whatever live stream they presented it on, when they showed it off with Skids. But it grew on me the more and more I looked at those promotional images. It feels more like what Generations used to be, which was new takes on existing characters. And while the Prime fan in me really wanted a new accurate Bulk, I don't know if they could ever top the first edition one, and like I did order the RID one, and hopefully it'll arrive at Bai's warehouse soon, please. But he still carries a lot of those original Bulkhead design philosophies, like big torso, wrecking ball, round head sculpt, stumpy proportions. I like it. The toy itself feels very nice, and it feels like it's built very well. Every joint is stiff, sometimes too stiff. The elbows are way too stiff on my copy, and they're riveted in, so I can't fix it. I do like the look, but it does remind me, and many others I've talked to, of Movie Hound. And yeah, I can see it, Legacy Movie Hound retool, maybe? That'd be cool. I know that that's never going to happen, but that'd be sick. I love the wrecking ball. I'm glad it's not clear like the other clear weapons, and it's an actual proper wrecking ball thing. He also has a minigun, which is, I guess, very Bulkhead? I don't know. If it was a Prime Universe Bulkhead, I wish it would have come with like his little hand cannon thing. They could have made that out of clear plastic if they really wanted to, but it would have been nice. But speaking of clear parts, the torso is entirely clear. And that's not a big issue here, given Hasbro's acknowledgement with the material and its brittleness in their latest Fan First stream, and how they're actively trying to make it different, like they are with the trials with the new Buzzworthy toys. And that's been evident in a lot of the Legacy toys. It feels more reinforced and sturdy. The hinges are thicker on the edges. The paint feels thick, which also adds that durability. They've added extra structure to it. And I have no issues with the longevity. Like, I feel like this will last quite a bit. However, these ports here are very troublesome. As you can see, they've started stressing, and it was like that out of the box. The tabs are too wide for the ports on my copy, and they're stressing those ports because they don't fit. Now, all I have to do is shave down the pegs a bit and problem solve, which I will do after this video, but it's something to know about. I don't peg them in because it's not really necessary anyways. He doesn't fall to bits if I don't peg it in, but it is still slightly annoying. Now, other than that gun and mace, you also get a tarp, which looks pretty cool in the back, but works very well as like a riot shield, and it has a really cool gimmick I'll show off in alt mode because it's my favorite thing ever. I just love the way that this thing looks. It's grown on me heavily to be my favorite from the whole line right now, just beating Dragstrip. Posing is your standard fare nowadays, but it's nice to see someone this bulky get super dynamic, and I like that. The head feels very expressive, and the legs feel great to move around, but the arms on mine, like I said, are a bit too stiff, so that's just something that is a wee bit annoying. Also, if I go to like move the arms out and I grab it by the shoulders, the wheels like to come off. That's also kind of annoying. I love that he actually has wrist articulation though. That's super nice. Transformation is a lot more involved than you might think. He does some pretty interesting things to get like the arms hidden away, and he's got these fold out gas canisters. Granted, it's still pretty self-explanatory. It's still neat and fun to do though. Alt mode is perfect for me. It's just perfect. I love the way it looks. I can totally see this being Beast Hunter's Optimus Prime later down the line as well. So there is that. I love the tarp thing on the back, although I do wish they made the vehicle in such a way that it would look good without the tarp on, because it doesn't. One thing about the transformation to bot mode though, the feet. It's very hard to get the heels out, but you tab them into the back here and then bend the feet out and boom, it unfolds itself. So I love that little bit of engineering. That's really cool. He compacts very well and looks really cool next to the other Legacy toys, minus Blaster, because that makes no sense. Now, the best thing about this toy for me is that he has actual Minicon ports, and not just like, oh, it fits a Minicon. No, these are actual proper Minicon ports. They don't do anything, but they hold Minicons. Minicons are designed with that little plug in the middle of their port, so that's what pegs into the mini, like the tab in the middle of them. And this is designed intentionally like this, which is awesome because there's all those Unicron Trilogy figures rumored, and that Metroplex that we saw that design that leaked out ages ago. So Minicons will most likely be a thing, and I cannot wait for that. That was one of my favorite things about Armada. It reminds me a lot of just like little things you can collect, like Bionicle masks and stuff like that. I love it. I love this Bulkhead. It's just so much fun and super neat. I guess if you have the first edition one, your opinion may differ, but I don't, so I think this thing's amazing. 9 out of 10 for sure. I love this thing. Legacy in general is mostly just a win, at least this first wave. Like, I get the complaints of G1 stuff like, oh, Bulk's 2 G1 and stuff, but like, Generations used to be all about new takes on existing characters, and this is kind of a return to form, and I'm okay with that. Yes, we're still going to have G1 accurate stuff, but we also have these, and I hope to get more stuff like this, more interesting stuff like this, sometime soon in the future. Like I said, there's all of those rumored Unicron Trilogy toys coming out soon, so I'm super excited for that. I know a lot of people wanted an accurate Prime Bulkhead, but I doubt a lot of people would have expected it to be show accurate if we didn't know about it beforehand. So the entire wave of Legacy Wave 1 was in a leaked listing. Leaked listings will always be a thing, and that's alright, but something that I tried not to do is form expectations based off of something like that, and I urge people to do the same thing. Like, speculation is fine, it's pretty fun, but making concrete opinions on a listing and expecting that certain thing, you will more than likely be disappointed with the product that's actually going to come out. And I think that's what happened with Bulkhead. It said, the leaked listing just said Prime Bulkhead. And people thought, oh, we're going to get a round Bulkhead, but we didn't. And if we didn't know that information, I feel like less people would be disappointed with the Bulkhead that we got. It's just something that I thought of. It's just like this, it's quote-unquote my headcanon for the reason why some people don't like Bulkhead, but you might have your completely different reason. That's totally fine. The toy itself is really good, and the line as a whole, it's just started off pretty great. I'm really excited to see where the rest of this line goes. New Minosaur, sign me up. Minicons, yes please. Prime toys, G1 toys, Unicron Trilogy toys. Give me all that. Clear weapons, but like, that's the only bit. But like, as a whole, I'm looking forward to this more than I was with Siege. So the next 2 to 3 years of this line, I think, are going to be awesome. I'll probably get the Walmart exclusives once they're released, so I'll make a video on those too, but they're currently not out yet here in Canada. I don't even know if they're going to come to Canada. I hope so. But thank you very much for watching this extremely long video. I apologize for that. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.